Cutters, Degrassi, unpopular opinions. Take it as an unpopular opinion, but I don't care how you take it. So anyway, this episode, number 151, has to do with the bigger doormat in the Degrassi universe. Now, someone did a post a couple weeks ago, and for context, it's being taped on July 15th, 2022. As Independent Ad said, do you think that Terri, Anya, Claire, and Katie are doormats for remaining friends with Paige, Holly, Jade, Jenna, and Marisol after they did them dirty? And says that, yeah, there are doormats and all that. But a couple of people said that Claire was not really a doormat for hanging with Jenna, because Claire and Jenna were not really friends. They were more like frenemies, and they didn't really interact much after Jenna stole Casey from Claire and all that. Yeah. And it's like, you know, Katie and Marisol and all that. I didn't even know about Katie and Marisol's thing. I know Katie was running for student body president, and she was flirting with Drew. And then Marisol saw this and runs against Katie and said that Katie has an eating disorder. I guess this was before Katie's knee problem. But anyway, yeah. And then someone said, well, Marisol revealed or threatened to reveal Katie's eating disorder in school. It was a school presidency. It was just a fight over Drew. So, yeah, that's a tight one. Yeah, and a lot of people said that, you know, everyone had a lot of problems. Yeah, Claire was there. But the question on my mind is, who's the bigger doormat? Well, with Katie not really being a doormat as much, who's the big? To me, it's who's the bigger one, Anya or Terri? Well, you could say Anya, you could say Terri, but I'm going with Terri. Do you know why Terri was unfortunately a doormat? Because it led to one of the most shocking it goes there moments in Degrassi history. Now I know people will say Anya because you know how Holly J treated her like a lapdog and all that. But the problem is, I think Terri's was big because Anya's timidness didn't really lead to a gigantic storyline like the Rick Murray situation. And you'll obviously follow me on it. And also, I already did it on Popular Opinion about Anya. So if you look at the playlist, early on I did something about Anya's timidness. So basically, you know, I already did a video on Anya. And I wouldn't be doing Terri justice if I went with Anya. So here's what happened. So here's the background. So Terri was in season 1 and played by Christina Schmidt. And of course, I keep saying this, Christina Schmidt actually went to my high school. We actually were in high school together for a couple years, but she wasn't at the school as much, I guess because of tutoring and taping and all that. But yeah, she was Terri McGregor, and that's Christina Schmidt. And she used to go to my high school, Waterloo Oxford District Secondary School in Baden, Ontario. So yeah, but I don't think she knows who I am, so thank God. You know. Anyway, so Terri was this plus size girl, if you will call her that. And she's trying to fit into a society that still wasn't really good with fat girls at all that. But anyway, Terri was friends with Paige, Ashley, and Hazel. Unfortunately, Terri had eyes for a spinner, and Paige was jealous and wanted to knock Terri off. So she decided to get Terri drunk so badly that Terri loses her chance to be with Spinner so that Paige could be with Spinner. It's kind of weird how Paige went after Spinner and not the other way around. But anyway, Terri felt very much in trouble. She had a dad. Well, her mother died off screen, and we don't know what happened to her until Terri reveals in season 2 when she's trying to help Craig deal with the loss of his dad, his abusive dad at that. It said that her mom died somehow, and she was told about it during a birthday party. So anyway, Terri had self-image problems. I mean, unfortunately, that's a reality sometimes. But the fact of the matter is that Paige was jealous. And, you know, Paige put Terri and Hazel in a bad situation. in season 2, when Ashley was trying to get back into Paige's good books and all that, Paige seemed to not want Ashley around or want Ashley to be close to her friend group. Ashley was being bit by Paige, in a sense. The worst part about Paige, in my mind, is that Paige putting pressure on Terri and Hazel to choose. It's either you stay with me, you're on my side, you stay with me, you'll be the cool kids, and you'll be, you know, the honeys of Degrassi, or you're with Ashley, you become, persona non grata. Unfortunately, Hazel and Terri took the security of Paige's friend group because, they were outcasts in a sense. And of course, it seemed that Terri didn't stand up to Paige and all that, which is kind of stupid. Now, of course, Terri did stand up to Paige in season 3, but that's in a different context. So Terri has roses at her locker, and we find out that Rick Murray puts them in her locker. And, she's like, all this. Now, Terri, of course, having self-image problems, she did earn money from being a plus-size model and waved it in the face of an ice cream vendor who insulted her. So anyway, Terri was strong and sassy and all that. Terri, unfortunately, with a relationship with Rick, would find out that Rick is abusive, emotionally and physically, even pushing her into a wall. Terri breaks off the relationship with Rick to Paige's happiness and all that. But then during a trust exercise, they get back together and Paige flips out. I don't know why Terri would do such a thing. I mean, I can understand Paige's POV, but the simple fact is that, everyone in Paige's clue, like, Paige and Spinner, Jimmy and Hazel, they find out that, Terri is not in a good situation with Rick. He's controlling her, even what she ate and all that. And so Paige tries to tell Terri off, saying, you can't be with Rick and all that. But Terri decides to stand up for Rick. In a sense, when Paige forces Rick to go off into the woods, and Terri yells at Paige, I think, and then goes after Rick, and then tells Rick that, it's just Paige being Paige. And Rick was upset that, Terri was putting Paige over him. I mean, yeah, that's kind of a doormat move. I hate to say it, but I think that's a doormat move. I mean, why would Terri do such a thing like that? It just boggles the mind how Terri would, want to stay with Paige, even though Paige was kind of abusive, jealous, bit of a prick. And then, Terri has her incident. She gets hit onto a rock and then she's unconscious. And she goes to the hospital in a coma or something like that. She recovers kind of from her injuries, but we don't know to what extent. In season 4, she's basically off the show, and it's like, what the hell? And, it doesn't help that Raj gave her a passing notion in the whole thing, saying that, Terry's at a private school, I can't talk about her affairs, blah, blah, blah. It's like, Jesus, Murphy. So, yeah, I know Anya was a giant doormat for Holly J to step on. Basically, that Holly J offered Anya protection and all that to stay with her. I think Holly J was grasping at straws because she's like, she doesn't have anyone else that really wants to be close to her by friendship. So she forces Anya to be her friend. In exchange, if Anya would be like Holly J, then Holly J will basically give Anya lots of good things. But the only problem is that Anya sometimes gets in trouble because Holly J throws Anya under the bus. Anya finally decided in season 10 when she was told by Holly J to ruin Sav's presidential campaign by saying that she's pregnant with Sav's kid. Holly J decides at the last second to, she wasn't pregnant, but she said that it was a miscarriage. It was a miscarriage of justice to Holly J, and Sav wins the election, and Holly J is pissed. Even more so that Anya stood up for herself. And as I said, Holly J was, I think, grasping at straws because no one really liked her. And it feels like the writers recycled the Holly J Anya relationship from the earlier part, Terri and Paige. I think it was just almost carbon copy, but they changed some stuff. So yeah, Terri being a doormat kind of led her into Rick's eyes. It's like, Terri felt so self-conscious about herself, she decided to go with Rick, despite Paige's misgivings. I mean, Paige was kind of a jerk in a sense, forcing Terri and Hazel to cut themselves off from Ashley, and then Ashley went on a bit of a downhill slope. But the simple fact is that, I already did an Anya unpopular opinion / hot take. So this is basically Terri's time to shine. And after all, how many Degrassi unpopular opinions / Degrassiisms have I done on Terri that have not been partially involved with the Rick Murray story, the Rick, like her individually? Not too many. But the simple fact is that, Terri wanted to be loved by a boy. And, that whole road trip thing, Paige having her parents' fan, she was going to be with Spinner, Jimmy with Hazel, and Terri was going to be by herself. Everyone said, oh, Terri will be fine because she's with friends who care about her. So, she wanted to be with someone. I think she was jealous of her friends having boyfriends. So, anyway, that's the way it goes. And I feel Terri was a bigger doormat because it seemed that Terri didn't break away from Paige as much as Anya did with Holly J in the end. Anya got away from Holly J when she did. Paige got away Terri got away from Paige only because of the coma. So I just don't know how much Paige would have treated Terri if Terri stayed on the show. But the stupid producers didn't want her on the show. Fuck you. All Lord of the Oxford will beat the tar out of you if I ever find you. That's just the way I am. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. Thanks for watching.